This is Gunsmizer Watches, and after the morning espresso, man, it's like, dude, what are we going to talk about? Well, let's talk about not a success, but a failure. Let's diagnose this failure from its beginning to its end, man. And the end hasn't even played out yet. If you recall, which you probably don't, but you may, back in May, maybe it was March of 2014, I get those M words confused, I uploaded like a video, man, on like the Kobold watch company, man, and it was on the newest, latest, and greatest, and discounted this, that, or the other, and I told you that they owed me some like moolah, man, some like do re mi fa so la ti do, man. And that, you know, they sent me a watch. But, and I told you that the power reserve wasn't correct, and that none of the actual real specifications of the watch of the movement were really checking out. And did I crack the back of the watch case? No. Do I understand why nothing really kind of jived, man? No. But let's start at the beginning. Lang had this little dude, Kobold, who is not an American, and who is, of course, allowed in the country on a visa. So I told him and inspired this boy to make a watch. And said, one day, this, that, or the other, there could be a watch company with your last name, da da da, and I'm paraphrasing and I really don't care. And he started out making adventurers' watches. This is Sir Randolph Finney. You know, man, the like explorer dude. And they were very durable watches with acrylic case fronts, this, there, the other, da da da. And they were designed just for going in very extreme environments and making it back out. And then, of course, he was very successful with the Polar Surveyor series because of the way in which they lubricated the movement and the stuff, man, like the juice, dude. It wouldn't freeze up, and kept pretty good time, this, there, the other. And he paired himself with quite a few people. This is, of course, the Kobold seal, made and designed by that there seal type person, man. That was his nickname, and it was, of course, Gandolfini of, you know, that there what the hell was that TV show called? I don't know. I don't watch television. But anyway, he was on some movie with Robert Redford called The Castle. But he was on some famous fucking TV show. As I said, I don't watch television, so it's really not. I kind of work all the time, so you know, don't really have that kind of time. So anyway, that's the story of that watch. It's one of the most successful watches that Kobold ever built, designed and very rigorously outfitted. And then there was, of course, some of this watch, and I have no idea what it's called either. And then, of course, we have the Spirit of America, which has a display case back and fully decorated and all that crap. And this is, of course, a mechanical watch, and these two are automatics. They started getting to the point to where they put dates on them, which was happy, because this watch, I think at the end of its run was about $6,000. Just, you know, this, there, the other. It's funny to watch a watch go from $1,000 or so to $6,000 in sale price, and why companies do that, I have no earthly idea. But sometimes that happens, and I guess there's a sucker born every minute. But all of my watches are very, I have almost nothing in them, for various and sundry reasons. But you can see the swag, and you can see this, there, the other. And Kobold, unfortunately, I'll tell you the story of my watch. I have another Kobold, which is not here, And of course, that was the one that was the subject of the video, I guess, back in May or March or whatever the hell month that was. That I simply said that the the quality wasn't there. And of course, these 3 watches are made in Switzerland, or at least assembled in Switzerland with Swiss movements, this, there, the other. And of course, he tried to move things to the United States and kind of try to create an American watch company, this, there, the other, and da 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 da, and whatever. And then moved, I think, to shit, I don't know. Anyway, it was a sordid affair. Became a Swiss watch company, and then they were made in Nepal, and then the United States, and there, yonder, where, and whatever else. Wherever you could put an office just so you could justify traveling there as far as a write-off. I guess that was kind of the way it worked. But, and these watches, the 3 in front of you, of course, have very good quality control, and I have gotten really good service out of because they were Swiss made. Now, I cannot tell you how the ones that they made in Nepal came out, but I can tell you how the one that I have made in the United States came out. And it was literally not a very good watch. In fact, it was extremely terrible. If I had paid for it, I would have been irate. And I'm sure some of the people who have had problems with Kobold, I guess, in the last almost year and a half or something like that, I'm sure there are some problems with the brand or with the branding. I actually took a few minutes and looked up on Yelp, and of course there are quite a few complaints from this year. 3, which is kind of a lot, I would think. But anyway, so they started out really well, and then they kind of peaked, and now they're pretty much on the decline. I would say a lot of that decline is due to the Swatch group, but a lot of it is based on a lot of other things, as far as just the inability to make a watch. You can pay someone to assemble a watch, and with your dial on it, with your markings on it, your brand, and it used to be very, very, very easy. Nowadays, to get someone with a reputation to do that is a little bit harder. And since the Swiss watch movements are so basically cut off because of the Swiss watch industry being so irritated by the upstarts who are trying to compete in their industry with movements that were close to the same specification, and assembled, of course, with their parts, but a little bit, but not under their great supervision. And of course, anybody that knows any of these ETA or ETA movements are basically they're robot assembled. They're not really assembled by hand or manufactured by hand. So it's a pretty straightforward process of getting it done and keeping those robots and everything operating at peak potential costs, some money. So everyone was starting to compete with the Swiss watch industry. They were driving the prices down, this, there, the other, and of course then we've hit the recession. We've hit, this, there, the other, and da 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 da. But people who have a lot of money, are still buying watches and still doing all that stuff, this, there, the other. That's just the way it is. And this is kind of a mid-tier brand. But they started coming out with quartz, and they started coming out with all kinds of stuff. But let's don't talk about that. Now you can see this watch right here. Let's kind of get the swag off here because it's actually distracting to me. More, man. Do it. Anyway, but you see this watch here, and this is a Arctic diver, polar Arctic, whatever. It's anyway. It's a Swiss-made Arctic diver, automatic with date. I think I can read that. No, I can't. Anyway, let's just say that it is. Let's compare it to something that has a little bit different background and a little bit different part structure. Let's compare it directly to this watch, which is a Maritac. Now, the difference between the Kobold and the Maritac, if I was just using the watch, okay, is quite significant. Now, of course, this has a date where this one does not, but you have very easy to read illuminations on the Maritac, which you do not have on the Kobold. You have individual minute markers, which for using the timing bezel is very useful. You have markings all around instead of just going to the 15-minute mark, which is a typical diving configuration, and then the rest of it being very stark and plain. You have a red hand, which is just basically a taste issue, but you know, it's a much easier to read, albeit more complicated, but you know, your illumination on the hands are of course larger, and this, there, the other, and I think this one has blue illumination. This one, of course, is your typical super luminova mine, that there greenish type stuff. But you know, that 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's do the same thing to this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have a 120 click bezel on this one, and you only have a 60 click on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which I prefer the 120 for my own personal use and preference. It allows me to do timing a little bit more precisely, where you're not basically locked in to it always being just your standard deviation of 30 seconds or so. Anyway, but that's just my own personal opinion. The difference between this watch I think was, at the time I purchased it, $200 or something like that. It was some very special deal from Maritac. And it has a 25,000 beat per hour movement in it, made by Miyota, which is Citizen, and is a very well-respected watch brand. And this is their response to Swiss ETA taking their movement to 2824 basically and limiting its production, which made their ability to it gave them a market, okay, to move up, because the 2824 became basically priced out of the market, and then Miyota moved in and made a pretty good movement, something that would compete with the 2824. Maybe not all of the variations of the 2824, but it's a very good movement. And this watch was whatever it was. Of course, I got some super secret bargain basement price on this watch. I think the cheapest you could really buy this thing was somewhere around $1,750, maybe $2,000. Who the hell knows? Who the hell cares? It's like it's kind of absurd after that. It's like this watch. Well, we'll sell it to you now for the low price of the list price is $6,000, but we'll give you $1,000 off or something. Just stupid shit like that. Where I got this watch on a metal bracelet for less than most people bought the bracelet for. Of course, they made a titanium version. They did a lot of other shit. Anyway, the way they did their marketing and distribution was kind of weird. But that's really the point. I'll show you another competitor. Just a standard Seiko Monster. And this is, of course, the older Seiko Monster. This is the square numeral 1. It doesn't have the arrow shape hour markers. So this has the older Miyota movement, which is about 2100 beats per hour. Didn't have the same, doesn't have the same timing. It's not as accurate as the newer version, okay? But it has super illumination. It can be had very inexpensively. This is the older version. The newer version, I think, is around $230, from $200 to $230, depending on where you purchase it at. And it's a very comparable watch as far as quality. It has, of course, a Hardlex, which is basically a mineral type crystal on it, which is, of course, my favorite crystal for any type of watch where you're going to be doing things around any impact zones, because the mineral glass will scratch, but it will not crack like sapphire will. But with the new technology and the people making sapphire and everything else nowadays, the newer sapphires are very, very, very reliable. My brother had one that unfortunately his sapphire cracked, but that was just basically a design issue with that particular watch, because at the time they weren't making those super thick sapphires, except for in very limited runs like this one, and then doming them and all this other crap. And this is a very old watch, but I managed to keep this one in pretty good shape. Anyway, this is Guns, Knives, and Watches, and really around the $200 and some price point, you can find watches that are pretty comparable to these as far as just the fashion of them, and they work really well, especially the second version of the that their Seiko Monster, man, the second gen. Plus, I like the it's a small issue, but I really like the arrow indicators as opposed to these. It's just a little more elegant. And then, of course, your self-winding, and these were basic movements. They were all decorated. I don't actually know who decorated this one, whether this one came directly from ETA or whether it was that there S-type, that there the evil people, man. Anyway, this is Guns, Knives, and Watches, and this is just my I guess rendering of what has happened to a company that not only got caught in the downfall of the global economy and also the U.S. economy, but also got caught up in its own basic bullshit. And eventually someone may buy the brand and bring it back around and this, there, or the other, and may see some value in it. But until then, I'm pretty much, they have my watch, and they've had it since November of 2014 in for repair, and I haven't gotten anything back. And if you want a deal, if you want to be connected with Everest or any of these global expeditions, this, there, or the other, go watch it on IMAX. This is a patch we got from going to the Regal IMAX and seeing Everest. It's a really good movie. A lot of the things they did were not correct, but it is a movie. And you have to understand that they didn't film it on Everest, except for just base camp and then I think Camp 1. But I think from Camp 2 on up was very not the way it is. But they redid the sets really well, and they redid the routes, the best they could, and they got a lot of the things right, except for the fact that if you take your sunglasses off on the top of Everest for any time at all, you'll basically go snowblind because your retinas will be burned out of your, you'll basically have sunburned retinas. But they covered a very delicate issue in the best way they could, and it was a shame that those people died for whatever reason, and a lot of good people died that day, and a lot of good people have died since. It's Guns, Knives, and Watches. Have a good one.